afternoon and welcome to Thursday Sports Talk. I'm your host Tim Deep, and joining me today are three great sports people, know a lot about sports, and boy, we got some things to talk about today. To my far right is Caleb Harrell wearing the dark TC hat. The white TC hat is Jacob Harrell. Mike Spires is dressed and looks really great. And again, I'm Tim Deep. As we get started, though, just a couple of quick notes, guys. Deep Productions, which is doing this, is proud to announce that Merchants and Citizens Bank has become its first sponsor. They're actually going to be helping to finance through ads, not only this broadcast, but also ball games, podcast, other community events. So a special thanks to Merchants and Citizens Bank. Members of Deep Production will be coming to various businesses in the area very soon to present the product. And again, hope that you enjoy the product itself. But again, a special thanks to Merchants and Citizens Bank for being a sponsor and also lending us the facilities here today. Decorations by Mike Spires. So if you need your wedding or anything decorated, I'm sure Mike would be glad to do that. Also, just to kind of mention, we're very proud to announce that our YouTube numbers and the number of hits we're getting on the website has been really outstanding. So to everybody who's been looking at the ball games and looking at our product, we thank you so much, and please keep hitting us with it. And any comments are very, very welcome. Speaking of comments and all, we've got a lot today. We want to start off by talking a little bit about the Final Four that's going to be coming up in just a couple of days, I believe, from San Antonio. Also, we've talk a little bit about some Trojan sports, and if we have time, we'll hit on a couple of things, maybe even how the Braves might even do, because for Major League Baseball fans, Happy New Year. Today is the birthday of Major League Baseball.
Right.
But guys, Final Four is coming up, and again, the research that I know that you guys have done, we want to give some insight into Final Four. We're not by no means suggesting that you take these predictions to the bank, so to speak, but for fun and purposes and discussion, hope you enjoyed the show. So, Mike, we want to turn over to you guys. Final Four time. We've got four teams. Unlike the past, any one of these four could legitimately win Monday night.
This is one of the most exciting Final Fours, guys, in years. I think the teams are evenly matched, and I think what's going to be really great about this one is the style of play for these teams is going to allow for some really good ball games. Let's face it, last year's final between North Carolina and Gonzaga was absolutely abysmal with the fouling situation, right. The style of play. The game would just slow to a crawl, and I don't think you're going to have that with these teams. They're so guard-oriented. I'm looking for some great basketball down in San Antonio, home of the Turtle Rats.
There you go. Great name. But, Mike, you mentioned the varying styles of play. I think if you're a fan of the three-point shot, Villanova, Loyola, boy, you're going to be seeing some things. If you like a little defense, maybe Michigan. Y'all's take on these teams?
Oh, yes, without a doubt. I mean, you pretty much summed it up perfectly. If you look at the three-point shot is pretty much summed up in the NCAA tournament this year. There's a lot of teams, especially with Loyola, who's been very efficient from beyond the arc. And, of course, I joked with Mike the other day whenever they come out of the Elite Eight, winning that game against K-State, looks like Sister Jean's prayers are still working. And by all means, and I saw that I think I got 2 or 3 games of the predictions that we made on the SST show, right? So, I mean, I didn't fare too well. Maybe I can fare better in the Final Four here. I mean, I might just have to go with Loyola in the next game, but Michigan also seems to be a formidable opponent.
Caleb?
Go Loyola, or however you pronounce that name.
The Ramblers.
The Ramblers. We'll go with that, yeah. I think I'm going to give my final Villanova and Loyola.
Boy, that
wow, Caleb jumping out there and giving picks here early. Oh,
well, Mike, one of the things to look at, reading a couple of articles this week, trying to do just a little bit of research, not as much as you guys. The combined records of these four teams is like 120-something wins
That's right.
against only 20-something losses. And which one is it, Loyola or Villanova? That's the 11th seed coming in.
Loyola's
Loyola.
the
And
11th seed.
yeah, but they've only lost one game since January.
Yeah, they're 32 and
mean,
5 on the season.
So this is just incredible, Mike, what we're getting into tonight.
Yeah, there's no doubt that this team has become a fan favorite. And as we talked about, Sister Jean, she's become the face of this team. In
Yes.
fact, this week, a little smack talk from Jalen Rose's grandmother, who is 100 years old. And she was basically saying that it was going to end Saturday, go blue. And so it's interesting when you see a 100-year-old woman talking smack to a 98-year-old woman. I wonder how that would go if we put them in the middle of the court and let them go at it.
Could be a little pay-per-view if you'd like.
That could get interesting. But yeah, really getting into this Loyola team that has become such a fan favorite team. You think back to their 3 games prior to the Kansas State game. They won the first game there against Miami on a last-second shot by Dante Ingram. Then you had the thriller against Tennessee, where their guard Clayton Custer hit the game winner in that one. And then the game against the third game there, you had Towns, their guard, against Nevada. And they had a 1-point game with the clock winding down with about 7 seconds left, and he drains a 3. So, they've won a lot of these games with clutch shots, but then they just blew the doors off Kansas State Saturday.
I mean, you're right. That actually goes to show that, March is not a month of consistency. I mean, you see for about a 3-game stretch, it comes down to where you got to win it late, and then all of a sudden it seems like you've pieced everything together up into the Elite Eight, and now you come in here and, like you said, blow the doors off this other team. But going into the Final Four, will Loyola still roll, or as they've advanced into the Final Four, going toward their first championship since the 60s, will they fold under pressure?
That's a good point, because we've had 3 other 11 seeds that got this far, and all 3 lost in the national semifinal. So that's the test to see, can they get over the hump and get to the final?
I think one of the things you got to look at with Loyola, their coaches have done a great job of finding mismatches. Because if you're able to hit those outside shots, obviously there's got to be some screen set. There's got to be a lot of ball movement. It's not like they're just going to be left unattended on the floor. The thing is, too, kind of like it, and that's why I say they're a little bit like Villanova in some respects. They don't mind taking the shot and taking the 3. Before the 3-point line was there many moons ago, you still had teams that would work on the outside, but a lot of it was the dominant big man inside. With Loyola, you're not just looking at that. You're looking at these outside shots. What's that old thing? You live by the sword, you die by the sword. Well, if they're hot, watch out. But if they start off ice cold, could run into a little bit of a problem depending upon the matchup. And in first round this weekend, who is the Loyola matchup?
They've got to play Michigan, which makes for a very interesting matchup when you're talking about Michigan, a very good defensive team, especially defending against the perimeter shot. And Loyola, these guards are so quick. They basically run a 4-guard offense. Towns, Custer, Richardson, and Ingram, the 4 starting guards. And then they've got Cameron Krutwig, a 6'9", 260 big man, who's going to be – I want to see this matchup. I know we talk about the guards as both of these teams pretty much run a 4-guard offense. But Krutwig against Wagner for Michigan, the big German, Mo Wagner, that is going to be quite an interesting matchup.
Well, yeah, you're exactly right, and I'll let Caleb piggyback on this if he wants to. You got to think, yes, if you look at his measurements, really 6'9", 240, you think that kid is just big. You think he'd be kind of slow, but you look at him on the court, that's not the story here. But you're exactly right. Coming into looking at the numbers for both teams, Loyola known for the offense, Michigan known for the defense. It's going to be pretty much, for lack of a better term, a gladiator match on the hardwood. Caleb?
Mike, the kid that you mentioned there, I'm reminded of last year. I believe it was the Final Four. Gonzaga was in it, right? The kid, their center. I don't remember his name, but he was, his measurements matched up a lot like this guy, and really once he got under the basket, you really couldn't stop the kid. Could it be this way come game time?
Well, and that's a good point, because the way this Loyola team passes the ball around, they move the ball quickly. They good passing team. Not only that, but these guards, we talk about the three, but they're extremely quick off the dribble as well.
Well,
they penetrate to the basket
And
well.
I agree with you, Mike, but I still think a key is going to be the big man underneath, because if their shots aren't falling, you've got to get the rebounds and then kick it back out to your shooters. If they can dominate the boards, that big man, then yeah, they're going to be fine if they miss. If they don't, they could be in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, and that, especially with this Michigan team, because the guards, they do give up a little bit in inches to the Michigan guards, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But one other thing of note with this Loyola team, Krutwig, the big man, he was the Missouri Valley Conference freshman of the year in the Missouri Valley. And these two guys I want to point out too on this team, Ben Richardson and Clayton Custer, the two guards, they are from Overland Park, Kansas. So think about that. They had in fact, Custer had an opportunity to go play college baseball at Kansas State.
Wow.
So Loyola goes and finds these players out of Kansas and Kansas State's backyard.
Pulls them right out. Exactly.
And another thing I like about their coach, Porter Moser, he likes players that play on championship teams. I believe they said that there's a combined 7 state championships amongst these players.
And that tells you a little bit about that these kids have played in pressure situations. I mean, just on the limited amount of time that we had the opportunity and pleasure last year and even this year just to go to the high school playoffs, the crowd, all that, it's incredible the amount of pressure. One thing I wanted to see and get y'all's opinion on when it comes to this matchup is very simply, in football they always say, you got a good defense will beat a good offense. Is that going to be the case here with the Michigan-Loyola matchup? Michigan, big defensively. Loyola, big with the offense. Would a good offense beat a good defense this time? Does that apply in basketball or does it not? I mean, what do you guys think?
I think it really does apply. I'll let Jacob jump in on this, but I think it does.
Mike, there's one thing I want to jump in before I answer Mr. Deep's question. You're right. When you mentioned that there were 7 state championships among this basketball team here, that also sort of sways my opinion about them going into the Final Four here. With those championships there, you can tell that these kids have played in a championship situation, but of course you get into college, the arena size grows, cameras rolling. There's no cameras really, I take that back, not that many cameras following you in high school, but you jump into here now. Will they be able to avoid the cameras and just focus in on the basketball game? To answer about the defense here, I agree with you, Mike, that it does apply. I mean, I'm not going to reveal my pick as of right now, but I think that Michigan is actually going to have a tough time with Loyola here just by watching them play basketball throughout the tournament. They're a very fast, quick team. I mean, yet again, to be able to effectively shoot from beyond the arc is very effective. And of course, with the big guy there, I mean, if he's effective while actually inside and under the basket as well, Loyola has a big chance to win this game.
And you mentioned earlier, Tim, about screens.
Yep.
This team does a phenomenal job with their screening and getting guys open.
Exactly.
And they're really good at dribble drive and kicking the ball out for those threes as well. A number talking about the offense versus defense matchup. Loyola is 16th in the nation in three-point shooting. This Michigan team, through the tournament, right now is holding their opponents to 26.2% from behind the arc. So it is the classic defense versus offensive matchup. Two of the key defenders for Michigan are 6'6" Charles Matthews and 6'7" Isaiah Livers. And those two are going to be, it's going to be interesting to see how they match up on the wings with these Loyola guards.
Very true, Mike. And maybe this goes back to y'all's earlier point. When you reach the March, and your game plan all season is fast. We move fast. Michigan's good defense, and I think come the Final Four, who's able to adjust Maybe your game plan is, move the ball fast, and I think come March, you have to who's willing to adjust more to help you win the game.
And one of the things,
Great point.
Caleb, along that line, I've been reading again some of the stuff from ESPN. They have a great article that takes each of the 4 teams, and again, this is where I got some of my little stats from too. They took each of the 4 teams and analyzed strengths, weaknesses, and what it's going to take to beat so and so. So again, I'm not necessarily trying to make a promo for ESPN, but if you can get to that article, man, it's a fantastic article. Does a great job of analytics and even breaks down some of the numbers, Mike, like you were just doing there. So some great stuff to look at.
Yeah, and you look at Loyola, and this is something that jumped out because I went back and watched some of the game last night, and something that Chris Webber pointed out really well in that telecast as the analyst there. This Loyola team has 5 guys that average in double figures.
Wow.
There's not too many college basketball teams out there that can say that.
Exactly. But we're not going to pick who's going to win this yet, right?
Right.
But why don't we shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about the other matchup, Mike, which I believe is Villanova and Kansas.
Yeah, this is your classic blue blood matchup. We talk about Kansas, but let me throw this out before we get into that.
Okay.
Guys, all the years, we talk about the blue bloods being Kansas,
Duke.
North Carolina, Duke, Indiana, some of those,
Kentucky.
UCLA, Kentucky, yeah. But has Villanova, with their 2 championships, and now this, I believe, their 6th Final Four, can you make the argument? And they're also the winningest team over the last 4 years. It's ridiculous, the wins
Yeah.
over the last 4 years. Can we now say that they have reached blue blood status?
I would think in our minds, yes. Media minds, possibly not. And the reason is it's not out there during football season. It's not out there during other sports season. It's basketball. So whereas a team like Kentucky, even though their football has not always been the greatest, they're still getting that national exposure. I think from a pure basketball standpoint, absolutely. They're an elite team. They're a great ball club. But I don't know if Joe Fan could tell you where Villanova's located, how big of a school it is, those kind of things. But from a pure basketball standpoint, to say they're not elite, and this will be a great argument, so I want to take the other side on that. We'll do a little first take here. I think that would not really be an honest representation of that university. Because, boy, basketball-wise, Mike, it's hard to argue with the stats you just gave.
And let me rephrase it this way, too. Does getting to a 3rd national championship, does that put them over the top with the blue blood status if
Well-
they win it?
Well, to me, I honestly can't take a counter-argument position on this because Mr. Deep pretty much put it the best way that you could. Of course, Villanova right now seems to be, as far as eliteness, seems to be a one-dimensional school, and it's basketball right now. I mean, of course, a lot of people, like you said, I'm a Joe Fan here. I can't tell you where exactly
I can't.
Villanova
I mean,
is located.
Philadelphia, by
Oh,
the
is
way.
it
Thank you.
Okay. But also, you think about this too: is that Villanova actually, in other sports, has produced a lot of big athletes.
True.
Like with their football and baseball program, there's a highly touted prospect in the Chicago Cubs system who is on his way to the big leagues right now,
Exactly.
coming from Villanova. But of
You're
course,
right. But Joe Fan doesn't always know that.
exactly, Joe Fan doesn't always know that. That's why, like we say, we try to do as much digging as we can. But to go back to talk about the basketball team. In the fans' eyes, I think they've already hit blue blood status, but I do believe in your point saying that if they hit national championship appearance number 3, that should push them on into guaranteed blue blood.
Your thoughts on this, Caleb?
Guys, I agree. I think, from a basketball standpoint, to me, I think they're already there, and they're still trending up. And another thing, I'm surprised their head coach is still there because
Yeah.
I'm not surprised an ACC school, an SEC school, or Big 12, or anyway, a higher ranked name-wise school,
A
hasn't,
bigger school,
bigger
you're
school
saying.
hasn't come after him. But I think also that goes to what your stats and information that you gave, how things are trending up. The man wants to stay. because
Mike,
things are going up.
I think what was kind of interesting too, you talk about elite status. That's something that you can look at in all sports. To give you an example, in my mind, Eli Manning, football, is an elite quarterback, though he didn't have a great year this year. He's got 2 world championships. He's elite, in my opinion. However, there are a lot of pundits out there that will question it, saying he was surrounded by great teams. He's not necessarily elite. I think when you get a couple of world championships under your belt, I think you almost have to go. And in this case with Villanova.
Hey, just to make a side note about what you made about Eli Manning, you can't really argue that he's elite because consider with those 2 2 world championships those 2 rings he's won. Consider who he beat.
Exactly. Exactly.
Eli, if he's not elite, how could he have beaten Tom Brady, who is elite, twice? And that seems like to have been Brady's thorn in his side every time that he's gotten to a Super Bowl. Those 2 times that they played the Giants, he comes out with the L. But as far as Villanova, you're right, and Caleb made a great point about it's hard to believe that coach is still there because for him there's nowhere to go but up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mike, Georgia didn't go knocking on his door.
No, unfortunately.
We won't go there. I had to get the blood.
But it's very ironic when you think about what is considered one of the greatest upsets in the NCAA tournament of all time in 1985 when Villanova and Raleigh Massimino upset Georgetown. And now here we are some 33 years later, and Villanova is the favorite to win it all.
What a great memory you had, Mike, because that was like a David and Goliath.
Yeah,
matchup.
yeah. But looking at the matchup and what makes this Villanova team so tough is the senior-laden group that was on the national championship team a couple years ago when they defeated North Carolina. Jalen Brunson, you've got Mikal Bridges, Phil Booth, also Dante DiVincenzo, who is just incredible coming off the bench for them. Mm-hmm. Eric Pascal as well. I mean, 5 of these guys were on that group that beat North Carolina in that classic championship a couple years ago with the buzzer beater by Jenkins. Mm-hmm. And they are just so battle tested. I mean, the guards, you look at Brunson, he's a guy that if you saw it in the game against Texas Tech, there's not too many guards out there now that can back people in and hit that turnaround fadeaway like he does. That's classic Magic. He's not the size of Magic Johnson, but that's NBA old school style. With the kind of guard play, that's what makes this team so hard to beat.
Mike, they're dangerous. Here's an interesting point about that Villanova team. You mentioned Texas Tech, and I may have my stats wrong. I may need to go back and look. But if I read correctly, I think Villanova only hit 4 out of 26 threes in that game, and they still won.
And they still won by 12.
And I think that goes back, if you look at what we talked about earlier, the pressure in these ball games. Who can withstand the pressure? Boy, what you just said was news to me. I didn't realize. That's experience.
Exactly.
Coming into it. So, I'm not saying they're the favorite, but my goodness, battle tested is the word you mentioned.
And in the day and age, in the day and age of one and done, when you got a group like this that's played together, that's a huge advantage.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And actually seeing them coming into play, a guaranteed blue blood like Kansas, you look at the numbers and they're, like you said, senior-laden group. Mr. Deep put it exactly how I would have put it, battle-tested. And, this really does show you, on paper, they are the favorite because you got to think they've got that been there, done that mentality.
Yeah, look at these 19 points, 2 points per game for Brunson. Bridges averaging 17.8. Booth 10.3. Pascal 10.3. And then you've got DiVincenzo who's coming in off the bench, and the kid can absolutely get up and dunk the ball. This kid has incredible ups. Exactly. And rebounding for a team that's so guard laden, their guards just crash the boards. They've got that. Being from Philadelphia, they've got that New Jersey, Philadelphia, and New York City playground toughness type mentality.
Absolutely. And again, like I said, I still think, like you just said, Mike, you brought up a great point. They've been through this and won. Now they're going for another one. So absolutely. We go back and look, though. Villanova not a gigantic school. I wonder if they don't always get the respect
That's right.
that maybe they should. You know, to the average fan that may just flip on the television on Saturday. Oh, Villanova's playing Kansas. Oh, well, let's be for Villanova. That's a small little school. The average fan may not realize, hey, this team's for real.
And they are a 5-point favorite. The matchups head to head all time between KU and Villanova, they're 3-3 all time.
Wow.
So we're getting over to the Jayhawks, Rock Chalk Jayhawk, a team that I grew up really, a school I really grew up liking in the Kansas Jayhawks. They're coming in, and Bill Self was very hard on his team earlier in the year. Very critical, called them soft, said that they just don't have it. And this Jayhawk team has put it together. I mean, at one time, everybody thought they weren't going to win the Big 12.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, it's the classic example of a team that is the classic example of starting slow, improvement middle of the year, and exploding with success at the end of the year.
No doubt about it.
Well,
And
Mike, one thing with Kansas, too, if you noticed, I mean, the game against Duke
what a game.
was classic. And you go to overtime here with it. I mean, you talk about a tremendous shot of momentum going into the Final Four to beat Duke in overtime. I mean, I know that Kansas, was ranked, was it number 1 seed, I believe, going into it. But still, talk about a blue blood. Duke is a blue blood team. And for them to do that. Also, in some of the articles that I've been looking at and reading on Kansas, they've got 4 guys that can hit that three pretty good too as well, Mike.
Good point. Good point.
And Caleb, let's go back to talk about. I'll get your opinion on Kansas too, and make a prior point. We talked about Villanova's bench players as well coming in and making a big splash out there on the court as well. I mean, a lot of people think in a basketball game that if you're on the bench, you're automatically stamped, or in your mind you're stamped with, oh, I'm not that good. So I'm sitting on the bench, and I'll apply this to Villanova and Kansas as well. So especially with Villanova's example of what was that kid's name?
DiVincenzo.
DiVincenzo coming out there
5 times fast.
and coming and making a big splash. I mean, the importance of bench players in basketball, because there's only 5 guys out there at the time, so that's you're going to have some stars sitting on the bench, and also just the importance of bench players.
I could sum it up in one word. They are more than one word. Excuse me. They are valuable. You're when we're getting into the final few minutes of the game. Your stars, they could be winded,
Absolutely.
and that's
And
when
foul trouble.
And
Foul
in
trouble
foul
as well.
trouble, and that's when, say his name again, Mike. I don't forgot.
DiVincenzo.
Yeah, that name. But anyway, that's when they become even more valuable, and I think it'll probably play in Villanova's favor because they have a strong bench.
Guys, let me ask this question, just a very general type question, get y'all's opinion. First 2 games are on Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. Final, of course, is on that Monday. You got 2 great ball games coming up. All 4 teams are going to be high as a kite, ready to play on Saturday. What effect, if any, do you think that has on performance on Monday night? A blowout, let's say Kansas blows out Villanova, which I doubt that would happen. Let's say they did. They're able to rest a few of their players. The other side of the Loyola wins, but boy, they had to play everybody. Is that 24, 36-hour turnaround enough for both teams to be able to regain that momentum? Is it something that even has an effect? I've always been curious, like with the Super Bowl, for example. You play a game, you get 2 weeks to prepare. Boom, you go in. NBA playoffs, you get 3 or 4 days to prepare. Here you play on a Saturday, and boy, Monday night and prime time, you better be ready. Does Saturday's game have a positive or negative effect, if either, on their performance on Monday? What do you think, guys?
Well, I'll let you guys go first.
Well, for example, I mean, this is a really good question. I'm having to think about this answer. I mean, for example, if you look at Loyola seems to be a team, especially like you made mention about small schools not getting enough respect. I think as far as March Madness comes, and also during the year as well, small schools seem to get their respect in their basketball programs,
Right.
because that always seems to be the sport that the small schools dominate in. But especially with Loyola and them having to go through and play all these tough teams, you would think that they seem to be they have to have been put through the ringer,
Right.
pretty much. So I think that those 2 days of rest could actually help them. You get somebody like Villanova or Kansas, the been there, done that people. Yeah, that rest will benefit them, but it's basically going to be like they never really even played that Saturday game. They're just going to be ready to go just like that going into Monday.
Right.
Caleb, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think from the mental aspect of it, you like you said, come off that Saturday game, you win, you're hyped up. To me, that's the time when you turn something like this off and turn the TV off, get away from social media. Because I believe social media plays a huge impact on performance going from oh hey, we beat Kansas. It was a Villanova blowout over Kansas,
Right.
and I think
Staying
again,
away from it keeps that
Yes.
head from getting too big.
right,
Is what you're
keeps
saying.
getting too right, and then now you could turn your focus to Monday, and all you hear is hopefully your head coach.
Exactly, Mike. It's a grueling tournament. I mean, you think about it.
Yeah.
Your opinion on this?
Yeah, I mean, you've battle tested through this tournament. Especially look at these teams like Loyola with 3 straight very, very close games. Then you have Michigan that had to survive the game against Houston with the big 3-pointer at the buzzer to win that one. And so it's a grueling tournament. Then you go and you're on the biggest. I mean, outside of the college football national championship.
Oh yeah.
And the Super Bowl. This is the biggest stage in sports, in my opinion. Now,
Millions have
Yeah.
their brackets.
some
They
people,
love it.
yeah, some people may disagree. And you're talking about in instances where here we are in these big domes where the games are played.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you see sometimes some poor shooting performances early on as they're trying to get their bearings in that big vast dome with
You're right.
shooting the basketball. It can affect things. So yeah, the turnaround can have a huge role, but I think it's just the pressure of the moment. Which team can focus in, like Caleb said, and listen to their coach? Which team is going to focus and really be mentally prepared when the bright lights are on? And then let's face it, the pageantry of the Final Four is one of the coolest things, especially national semifinals Saturday, which is my favorite, where you've got all 4 of the teams in the building, and on TV you've got the different colors for the different teams. I mean, it's an incredible thing, and then too, playing the late game.
Oh yeah.
Could be a factor as well on Monday night.
Absolutely.
Mike, just to comment on the popularity, you're right. I mean, March Madness and the Final Four and the championship game, its popularity is right up there, like you said, with the Super Bowl or the college national championship with the football game. Really, you think about it, of course, I'm not trying to get political over this, but you think about previous President Obama, every March, even the president filled out a bracket.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
right.
Good point.
that just shows you that just shows you the popularity when the previous president now takes time out of his schedule to go fill out a March Madness bracket.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. It's big. Well, guys, we got about maybe 12 or so minutes left. Want to let's look at some predictions and then finish up with a little Telfair news, or
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Let's jump in. And real quick, I will note as well for Kansas, they've got Malik Newman, who's averaging 14 points a game, Devontae Graham 17 points a game, and Svi Mikhailov that is averaging 14.7. So that's some of the leading scorers and players to watch for the Jayhawks, as well as Udoka Azubuike, their big man. So he averages 13 points a game, the big 7-foot center. So those some other names to watch. So yeah, why don't we jump into some predictions on the big Final Four games?
sounds great.
That's
Well,
so-
why don't we start with the 2 games and then we'll go to the final. So, Mike, why don't you read us off the first game? Let's everybody go through it. Second game, and then we'll make our predictions on who's going to win it all.
All right, first game on Saturday, 6:09 p.m., Loyola and Michigan, the Ramblers and the Wolverines. Caleb, I will give you first shot at this one.
Go Ramblers.
Okay.
Okay. Caleb going with the Ramblers. Jacob, your thoughts on this big matchup?
You know, Mike, whenever we did the SST and we had the Loyola and Kansas State game, I went with Kansas State and got disappointed with the results. So, I mean, I'm not sure how much longer the Cinderella story of Loyola will last, but for this game, I'm going to jump on and say they make it to the final.
Okay, so you going with Loyola as well. Well, my heart wants to go with the Ramblers and Loyola.
Right.
I really do. And I'm almost ready to pull the trigger, but I love Michigan's coach, John Beilein, one of the great coaches in college basketball. And remember this player, Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman.
I'm so impressed with your phonics.
Yeah.
Man, you're doing
This
great.
guy is going to be the difference in the game. He's had a great tournament. I think he's going to be the key. It'll be a great, great battle. It'll be close, but I like Michigan late in this game to hit a three-pointer late in the game that'll seal the victory.
You sound like
And Rockman will deliver the big shot.
Wow.
Mike. You sound like Jay Billis from this morning.
There you go.
All right, Tim, your pick.
Mike, I've got to go with Michigan along with you on that. I think that Loyola's a great team. I think that their three-point shot, if they can make it, will be there. The only problem I see for them, though, is I think Michigan, I've always been a believer in defense. And if the other team can't score, you can't lose. And so I think they're going to basically try to shut, and will be somewhat successful shutting Loyola down just enough to make it to Monday night. But now, will that be enough? Will they have enough gas left in the tank Monday night? We'll have to see.
So we got 2 Michigans and 2 Loyolas here. All right, now for the battle of the Blue Bloods, Nova and Rock Chalk Jayhawk. Let's see.
You want to start on that end?
Yeah, we'll let Tim go on this one.
I'll be honest with you, Mike. I hate to pick against Kansas. I'm going with Kansas on that. I was impressed with what they did against Duke. They played a heck of a ball game. I know Villanova has the experience. Probably I'll regret this pick, because usually whoever I pick loses. Like I picked the Falcons against New England back in 2017 with the Super Bowl. No comment. But I really do think Kansas, I believe after what I saw and the grit they had against Duke, I think that they and Michigan are going to be meeting in the Final Four.
All right, we'll let Caleb go next.
Mr. Deep, I like your points. I think, like this morning on ESPN, the game day crew they were talking about these four teams, and the majority was saying, hey, Kansas has come on here lately. They have really shown, the Kansas way of basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree, but I think I'm gonna stick with my gut feeling here, and I'm gonna go with Villanova.
You like their experience.
I do too.
All right, Jacob, your thoughts here.
Well, my thoughts kind of resemble Mr. Deep. I mean, as much as I respect Villanova, and I know they're well on their way to establishing themselves as a guaranteed blue blood, I mean, I was just impressed that during the classic blue blood matchup of Kansas and Duke, that they had grit and they fought to literally the very end of the game. They had to go into free basketball, that quote like that, free basketball, and they fought hard and was able to beat Duke, my all-around favorite college basketball program. So I think my final matchup is going to be Kansas and Loyola.
Okay, so you're going to go with Rock Chalk Jayhawk as well. I love this Kansas team. Malik Newman was a kid from Mississippi. He was basically like Mr. Mississippi in basketball. He initially went to Mississippi State, transferred to Kansas, and he's had an up and down career, but this kid is on fire. He scored all 13 of Kansas's points in overtime.
Wow.
And he had 32, a career high in that game. Hit some huge threes from the corner, as well as Mikhailic with the big three to send it to overtime. And I really, Nova is by far probably top to bottom the best team. But I just have a feeling about this Kansas team. There's just something about this team, and I think it's a good matchup because both teams are very guard-oriented. Kansas likes to shoot the three as well. And they did a great job rebounding against Duke with Bagley and Carter. I mean, they out rebounded Duke, Jacob. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, literally, when it gets down to crunch time, it's up to defense, or more specifically, rebounds. Once the ball goes up, you better go up and get it, because I mean, literally, time is literally ticking off as fast as you can, as fast as you think.
So I'm gonna say I'm gonna go with my childhood team that I enjoyed pulling for growing up. And another thing to remember: 1988, Kansas won the national championship with Danny Manning.
Right.
2008, Kansas won the national
Oh,
championship.
man, look at
It's
this.
2018, Rock Chalk Jayhawk. So I'm going with Kansas and Michigan in the final.
So you're going with that San Francisco Giants even year hype.
Yeah,
There you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, guys, let's look at who we think's going to win the whole ball of wax. Who we got, guys?
I'll let you start this one.
Mike,
off
yeah,
first.
you go ahead with it.
I'm going to go with the Jayhawks. Like I said, I just think they're peaking at the right time, and I like Coach Self and what he's done there. And Kansas has been so close for a long time. This is their 15th Final Four. They have 3 national championships, but they have the Final Fours. They don't have quite the national titles of the Kentuckys and North Carolinas, who have quite a few more national titles. But I think this is Kansas's time to get their 4th national title. So I like the Jayhawks.
Well, Mike, I would agree with you, except one thing. There's something in my mind. Michigan. I don't know why. I don't know if it's I love their fight song. I don't know if it's just the tradition associated with them, or the fact that what I've read is they are a great defensive team. Probably of all of them, it's the defense. I'm going to go out on a limb because I don't know that Michigan's getting a lot of sympathy votes out there. I'm going to choose Michigan. You heard it here first.
All right. All right, guys.
Well, I mean, come Monday night, I do believe, I mean, ever since we got to the Sweet 16, I believe, I started to become a believer in the Ramblers, and Sister Jean was working some magic here. Well, I take that back, not magic. She had her prayers answered. But I do believe that Loyola is going to run out of their juice in the national title game, and that Kansas will just come out on top because they're that good.
All right, so another vote for the Jayhawks. All right, Caleb.
I guess I'm gonna be almost like Mr. D, pick the oddball in this matchup. But my pick, I believe, it's gonna be Villanova.
Wow.
I think, like we talked earlier, things are trending up for them, and I think it's gonna be their weekend, and it's gonna be their night, Monday night.
Hey, it's going to be a lot of fun. Guys, we got about
Good job.
5 minutes left here in the program. And again, like I say, this is going to be kind of an interesting thing to look at. And hopefully, if we do the podcast again next week, we'll come back and see who was right. So you better save this thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Guys, can we hit a couple of things on Telfair a little bit? I know
Yeah.
that we mainly hit
Oh,
a
yes.
major, event coming up. I know that Telfair is coming off, or a couple of days ago, came off a tough loss against Charlton. But you guys Jacob, were giving us some updates before we came on the air. So maybe you'll let everybody know what's going on with Telfair and what's happening here lately.
Well, honestly, that was a disappointing loss to Charlton the other day. And, of course, I mean, that one time during the game, Mike and I talked about this before we got on the radio the other day. I thought at one time when they started surrendering some more runs and the final being 6-1, I was beginning to think, are y'all beginning to take your foot off the gas again? Because they had gotten up into, I think, 7th in the power rankings.
Yeah,
I was
really
thinking, I was like, are you really starting to take your foot off the gas at this point in time? Because you've worked yourself into the top 8. Can you stay there? But they literally come back and rebounded from that loss. Of course, they did better down in Folkestone than they did here in McRae. But they literally rebounded with another huge win, just like the Dodge win, and went out there and had a very close win, defeating Appleton County 4-3. And actually, late last night, I appreciate Coach Mercer doing this for me. I got a one-question post-game interview with him via text message. This is exactly how he described the game. It says, Appling opened the door for us by letting us hang around, and we come together and pull it out. Cameo did a heck of a job on the mound battling, then came through with a clutch hit. Jarrett Dobson came in and shut the door. We played real well again on D, probably the closest thing to a total team effort of the season. I'd say 13 of the 15 guys on the team did something tonight to contribute. Just hope it's an effort that we can get going forward from now.
Man, that's fair. I tell you one thing that I've been impressed with, and when you just mentioned that, this team's got some pitching.
They do. They do.
And I mean, that's going to carry you a long way. I mean, you mentioned Cameo pitched that one. I thought Ian pitched a very good game against Charlton. There were some unfortunate plays in the field. Ryan Dobson, and you said Jared, I believe.
Yeah.
Dobson pitched. I mean, my goodness. I mean, you got 4 solid pitchers right there, right off the bat. So I'm like you. I think if this team keeps on, we could have a very interesting late spring and early summer here.
Oh, without a doubt. And honestly, I mean, I'm not trying to put these guys on a pedestal. I'm saying that this is probably the deepest pitching staff next to the 08 team that we had, really, just as far as deepness. I'm not going to put them up there as far on the talent level of the 08 team as of right now, because the pitchers we have now still have developing to do. And there was just something about that 08 team to where they were just
Right.
naturally gifted athletes there.
Exactly. Mike, comments?
One thing I really like about this team is they seem to be able to bounce back from tough losses. Because you look at the game against Charlton, losing 6-1, losing to Charlton again. That's kind of become our nemesis there in the region, and that's the type of a loss that can really get a team down. But I like the mentality. They come back, they forget about it, they get the big win over Appleton, which is a great baseball program.
Exactly, Mike. And just one point there, that's the program Byron Buxton, who now
That's
plays
right.
center fielder for the Minnesota Twins.
Right.
He come through there. So that speaks volumes for their baseball program.
Absolutely.
And they've been to the state championship, made a
Several
couple
times,
of
yeah.
state championship appearances. So that's just a huge win. And of course, if you don't know, they're taking on Irwin today. The Irwin game was originally scheduled for Friday, was moved up to today.
Is that a weather thing they're thinking
Yes,
about?
Yeah.
yes.
There's a forecast of rain for tomorrow, so they're actually underway right now. It being 6:01, they've been underway for about 30 minutes. They're probably in the middle innings by now.
Well, we'll try, like I say, on the next program to give an update on scores and all that. Caleb, you about to say something?
Yeah. Oh, real quick question for you two. I asked Mr. Deep this the other day at the game when
Yeah.
we were doing the podcast. With the Charlton matchup, with this year, would you say it's the Charlton factor of the matchups, or, like name wise, just knowing, hey, we're playing Charlton, or or we just had bad games? Your thoughts, both of you guys right here.
I mean, it could be. I mean, because we think it's an Irwin County thing too. We really have a hard time against those two teams, kind of getting over the hump. And but the thing with this team too, inconsistency's been a problem.
Right.
I mean, this team. The one thing that has been consistent has been the pitching, but you don't know with this team so far. One day they hit well, play defense poorly. Then they may have a game where they play perfect defense and they can't hit. So, but the encouraging thing to me, and I'll let you guys add on this, is how much better we put the ball in play against Gowan the other day.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that guy was a heck of a pitcher. And, yeah, we hit him. It's just unfortunate we didn't get a few 2-out hits. I'll be honest with you, Katie, one of the things I look at, I don't know that there's such a thing about with us having trouble getting over the hump against Charlton or Irwin. I know it seems that way. But when you hit playoff time, if you got some momentum going into the playoffs and you're talented, playing like you should, it doesn't matter who you play. I was talking to a couple of guys after that Charlton game, and really, if we do get to see Charlton in a best-of-3 series, I love our chances. I really do. Because we've got, I feel like, a little bit deeper pitching staff. I may be wrong. And again, but I think that and the fact that over the next few weeks, the games we have and that we play, like Jacob, you were saying, keep the foot on the pedal to the metal. We can go in and do some damage in the playoffs against anybody.
You're exactly right. And honestly, since we made it to the Final Four last year, a lot of our fans are expecting a repeat of that and possibly going one step further
Sure.
and going into that championship series now. But of course, what Mr. Deep just said about liking our chances in the best of 3. You remember Coach Mercer said that exact same thing. He said in a best 2 out of 3 series, he said, I believe we come out on top here.
I do too.
He said because, just of course, and you made the mention about we hit him, but a lot of our hits found leather. Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's some days
Yeah.
in
And
baseball.
some days that just happens.
It just happens. Yeah.
Well, guys, I hate to. I know we only have about a minute left. Just want to say again, thanks to Merchants and Citizens Bank tonight for allowing us to use the facilities. Also for Merchants and Citizens Bank for being one of the first or the first sponsor for Deep Productions. And if you get a chance to go to the website, it's www.deepproductionsllc.com. And again, like I said, we hope that you're enjoying these podcasts.
And,
I have a ball doing them with you guys.
Oh, I do too, and I do believe that Miss Deep has also made a Facebook page
Yeah,
for it
go
as well.
ahead with that, Jacob.
Yeah, Miss Deep has also made a Facebook page, and if y'all don't know about it, if y'all hear it from here first, go to Facebook and like the page and follow us so you can stay up to date with all that we're doing.
And again, not only are we going to be doing Telfair Sports, there's some things over in Wheeler that we're getting ready to do. Also, there's going to be community events that's going to be a part of this. Even, believe it or not, folks, in concert, not the Elton John retrospective we talked about years ago on the radio.
Yeah, we might better not go there.
Or
have
the
we?
Neil Diamond one or some of the others. But we do have some local talent that we hope to showcase as well. I'm thinking, and I'll double check with Mike, I believe Gage Harrelson's going to be one of them that we'll be doing at concert he's going to be doing over in Ryan, Georgia in a couple of weeks. We're looking forward to that. So you have any suggestions, things that you would like videoed or seen, whatever, that would be of community interest, just let us know. A little feedback. We look forward to it. But guys, any last thoughts before we close out? A special thanks to the cameraman again, John D.
Yes.
Phenomenal job. He does a wonderful job. How he does it, I don't know.
He's the man with the plan.
There
He's
you
got
go.
it.
So
And guys, thanks again we talked about Merchants and Citizens allowing us to be here, but thanks to them for this beautiful satellite studio here
Yeah.
as well.
That's beautiful.
Inspires Florist.
Yeah,
Right
Inspires
there.
Florist.
There you go. So, but Mike, take us out of here.
Yeah,
man.
a final. We'll let everybody have a final quick thought. My thought is it's going to be a great Final Four this weekend. One of the best ones we've seen in years. I think the quality of play is going to be fast, and like I said, a lot of threes. I think it's going to be exciting. Tune in and watch this Final Four. It's going to be a good one.
Oh yes, pretty much just like you said, this Final Four is going to be very interesting to watch. Probably the like you said, the most interesting one, for lack of a better term, to see here. I'm hoping I'm right with my picks, because I kind of stunk it up with the Elite Eight, so maybe the Final Four will be good here. I'm very eager to keep following Trojan baseball down the road as we keep calling those games. Maybe we can make it back to the Final Four, possibly push it further into the championship series. I'm really, really eager to see how we can do there. It's just, and I can't wait for the next show.
Yeah, Caleb.
Guys, it's opening day. Looking forward to a good weekend of baseball. And I'm also looking forward to the Final Four.
Absolutely, and I'm like you, Caleb. I was going to say, I've always loved baseball. I'm excited to see how the Braves do this year. A lot of pundits are saying under 500 again.
Right.
They'll break 500. They may even make a late run for the wild card.
Right.
Whether they do it or not, I don't know. But
Oh, and also,
it's gonna be fun.
And also, Mike, me and you mentioned about this. Sadly, we ran out of time, but next show that we do, I really want to touch on how good and consistent both Georgia's softball and baseball program
yeah.
is doing.
Yeah, we'll
so
get
mu-
into that.
So next program, tune in. So we'll be talking about that for a good bit
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, that sounds good. And I'll spare y'all the my rendition of "Friends in Low Places" like Charles Barkley does on the commercial, or any other singing, because it would be in his terms terrible.
Terrible. On
Terrible,
that note,
terrible.
On that note, whatever day you watch this, have a great day and see you later.
Peace.